Episode 12 was about faith and fury and division. And it was by far the most, I don't know, controversial, but I really kind of threw it out there. And I heard from some folks about that, but that's part of why I'm here. A big part of why I'm here. There's a part two to it too. There's a part two because I think that I made some notes here on my phone actually. A country that can't just disagree anymore, but despises anyone who thinks differently. It's where I break down politics, culture, media, personal identities, etc. We've done effectively 4 things. Polarization is just set into our culture. Echo chambers and curated news. Lack of shared facts, absolutely. Social media outrage and instantaneous news and instantaneous judgment. Loss of faith, humility, and real community. America isn't just divided, it's furious. And if we don't learn how to talk, listen, and disagree without hatred, the divide will only grow further. And that's, I think, a big problem that we have to thank our elected officials and other folks who... Our elected officials do well to keep us divided, okay? That's not what this episode's about. I'm just kind of giving you a recap on what episode 12 was. And instead of rushing into episode 13 being the part 2 of it, because I think there can be more than 2 parts, actually, I'm going to take a break and kind of do something a little bit different, because on the Green Pads podcast with me, Scott Lorette, I want to not just go over current events. I want to go over culture. I want to go over all those different things that I initially talked about, including dreams and faith and religion and atheism, all those different things, special needs, what have you. But it's all going to be relegated towards just my experience. It isn't just me making a movie, writing a book. Although at the end of this episode, I'm going to share with you everything that's going on because there's so much happening. And I just did finish, actually, the 3rd draft of a screenplay, which is just crazy. Crazy. I learned how to do it, and I wrote a screenplay. But right now, though, do you know someone, or are you addicted to something? And it doesn't have to be a drug. Whether it's a drinkable drug or a smokable drug or a snortable drug, it could be something that maybe it's an addiction for gambling. Maybe it's an addiction for shopping. Maybe it's an addiction for whatever. And if you don't, actually that's interesting, because does everybody have an addiction? Everybody. I don't care how prim and proper, how squared away you think you are. And I don't know the answer to that, but does everyone have an addiction? Like right now, one of my addictions, and I do drink a couple Monsters a day, which I get grief for, but I justify that because I haven't done alcohol or drugs in 20 years. But right now, I put my time and effort into espresso. In fact, someone asked me that today, if I could have this really cool dream come true happen. And we were just joking around. I'm like, I would love to become the world champion barista and know how to do latte art. All right. But today, though, it's the societal costs of sobriety. And it costs more than not just a monetary thing, but I'm going to end up with 8 deep dives into what it means. Because when we think of addiction, we think of what it does to that person physically, mentally. And we know there's much more to that than that. And what's crazy, though, is I'll just lead with this one. This shocked me. We moved back to a small town 25 years ago, whatever it was. 25, 26 years ago. And I'll never understand to this day some of the things that happened in living in a small town, however much I love my town that I grew up in. But I'll give you this one piece of these deep dive pillars, and that is, I lost friends when I got sober. Just think about that for a second. Not because they weren't my friends anymore because I was an alcoholic or drug addict or whatever. No. When I got sober, I lost friends. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper, but first off, there's lots of data points you can look at. So everybody talks about what addiction does to the addict, but nobody talks about what it does to everybody else. It doesn't just hit one person. Now, nearly 50% of all adults have a close friend or family member who struggles. 21 million kids live with a parent who has some type of substance abuse. And it breaks a body, but it definitely, it can shatter a family. Generational, actually. And if you look at families that have drug abuse, substance abuse in them, the levels of mental health issues are at an exponential level increased. Anxiety, depression, suicide, etc. Now, family system whiplash. Let me read this one. The day you get sober, you start a new chapter, but everyone else is still reading the old one. Totally, man. It's so easy, especially a brand new recovering addict. Day one, happy as a clam. They're just excited. They're sober. And meanwhile, some of those people that might be closest to you, not just family members, but friends, they're still living that old Scott. They're still living that old addict they know. You've got so much to prove to them in their minds. I get it. And but that's the thing, though. That's not the beauty, but the tragic, heinous ugliness of addiction is that it doesn't just hit one person. It touches everything that is in its path. Now, these are my deep dive analytical pillars. And I'll just say first off, and this is something that's very well known within the community, recovery community. And there's a saying, I like to butcher sayings, but this is one, which is, when you get sober, you are very well going to find yourself with new playgrounds and new playmates. And it couldn't be any more true. Number one, your sobriety threatens old identities. You may be the one that is known as the fun one, and you're not, and you're not fun anymore. Some of those friends that you had knew the old Scott. And the new Scott, maybe that shines a mirror onto who and what they are. That very well could be one of those connections and one of those friendships that was built on something that wasn't in here. Maybe it was built on a bottle or a line or whatever it may be. Drugs. It's called social homeostasis. Groups resist change because familiar dysfunction feels safer than healthy transformation. Your healing disrupts the balance. So my healing would disrupt the balance of the addiction and the fun. See, here's the deal, and I've always said this. I talk to my brothers a lot, and it doesn't matter if talking about my small town or the town I live in now. I think you could reach out and throw a stick and hit someone who's got a drug problem. I think that there were so many people that are addicted that have never been diagnosed, that have never admitted it, that have never thought about it, but they have an alcohol problem, a drug problem, smoking problem, whatever. I just wonder what the real true numbers are for addiction, because I'm sure it's just staggering. The ones who made others feel better about themselves. I was the fun one in the chaos and the escape. But that destabilizes the identity in that relationship. It destabilizes that homeostatic relationship of chaos and dysfunction. So, the Rose quote coming out of that is, your healing threatens the version of you they depended on. Absolutely. 103%. Number 2, not all friends were friends. They were drinking partners or smoking partners or whatever. They were drug partners. Substance-based friendships lack emotional depth. The bond is with the substance. The bond is with the experience. The bond is with that social environment. Absolutely. Just like we have feelings and we have memories that we can smell and touch and see in our mind's eye. I think the same thing applies so deeply with addiction. It's just those connections are very deep. But they weren't friendships. They were mutual agreements to escape together. And when you stop, all you are is a reminder of what they're avoiding. And that's why you can lose them too. You'll lose that friend because you're just that reminder that, what they're doing, it isn't beautiful. And I'll always remember the first couple of years I would have people that were in a drunken stupor tell me they were so proud of me that I got sober. And this is an offshoot here, but it's something that I felt. It's true. Being in recovery for as long as I have, big drunk crowds bother me. And it's usually where I can go into them. I have no problem. I can be around alcohol, drugs, whatever. Some people can't be 10 feet or 100 feet from a bottle of beer or whatever. I can. I've got brothers who drink. And if that was the case for me, I'd never be able to go outside the house. But it just doesn't bother me. It hasn't. It never has. Knock on wood. But I will tell you, though, in those social situations, though, where I'm around maybe friends, maybe family, maybe not either of those, but it's a drunken environment, and maybe someone when they come up and put their arm around you and they're just slobbering drunk. Man, I tell you what, I'm the biggest now slobbering drunk Nazi there is because it just turns my stomach. And Teresa normally can tell when I'm in a situation like that, and a lot of times I'll just get up and leave and not tell her. I'll just ghost and go outside. And she's cool with that, and she understands. All right, that was a tangent. Number 3, your recovery becomes a mirror they don't want to look into. Some of these, obviously, there's some overlap, and which is fine, but because of cognitive dissonance, I love this. Because of cognitive dissonance, people often avoid those who reflect their own truths. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done this because the Bruins are playing hockey right now, and I think they just scored. But people often avoid those who reflect truths that aren't ready to confront, so they withdraw, judge, or dismiss your transformation. I got to stop saying absolutely because I like that word. But you get sober, and then there's folks some that are actually the closest to you will not disavow, but they will put you down. They will shun you, whatever, because what you're doing is dismiss. Well, they withdraw, they judge, they dismiss your transformation because it reflects on themselves. Now, don't get me wrong. The addict, one of which I am, has all the blame for what I inflicted upon myself and others. But we're not talking about that today. Your recovery becomes a mirror, and not everyone wants to see their reflection. Number 5, evidence. People in recovery lose 40 to 70% of their social network, playgrounds and playmates. High-risk relationships sabotage sobriety. They do. See, for me, my sobriety and my faith are inextricably linked. Yes, inextricably. The stronger my faith is, the more my sobriety will be, and the stronger my sobriety is, the easier it is for my faith to grow. But they're inextricably linked. So if one were to fail, the other would surely follow. Social network restructuring is the strongest predictor of long-term success. Losing people is not failure. It's not. It's neurological and psychological protection. I don't know if it's Darwinian, but it needs to happen. It's a social detox as much as a physical one. Number 5, the shame effect. Some people ghost you because of shame. Even if you change, their nervous system remembers the chaos. The emotional lag is known as relationship inertia. I didn't know there was such a thing. They're just still living and reacting and acting to the old version of you. And they're not used to this. And I guess it can make some of those folks, even those closest to you, extremely uncomfortable. So the easiest thing to do for those folks is just to withdraw. Forget you, ignore you. And again, there's a couple things, and Teresa will back this up, though. Over the last 20 years, it was kind of shocking. There's probably, I can count the couples and the friends and things like that we just did not associate with. That it was pretty shocking to me. After a while, it was just like, wow, and I don't know. Is it because we don't want to be around him because he can't drink and he can't have fun? I don't know. I think there's some of that thinking, which I think is just comical. It's absurd, but you know what? Okay. Number 6, why you now feel repulsed by drunkenness. There you go. I hit that one earlier, but this is one that I find fascinating because neuroplasticity is something that I've been reading a lot about over the last couple months. And there's these different, actually there's some pages on Instagram that I follow on brain health, and they're just wicked cool. But neuroplasticity, where, your brain, you can rewire your brain. For example, and I don't know the exact numbers, so please don't quote me, but if you say something positive 3 times, then it has this dopamine, of this positive chemical reaction in your brain that's like at this level. But if you say something negative or you think negative, you get the same effect, but it's negative, of course, but it's incredibly deeper and stronger and more difficult to get out of and rid of. So you can rewire that brain, and it can go both ways, though. You can do it bad. Your brain rewires through neuroplasticity. Old environments that once signaled pleasure now signal danger. Creates disgust, anxiety, or repulsion around intoxicated behavior. That's what I was talking about earlier. I can think of this specifically, and I actually know examples over the years where I would have someone that I maybe didn't even know them all that well, but they were just, put their arm around you, and they're like, Scotty, oh, yeah. And they've got their alcohol, and it's, folks, I don't begrudge anybody. Drink all you want, wine, Chablis, Chardonnay, whatever you like. You know what? It's a legal drug. It's a legal drug. Most people can a lot of people can handle it, quote unquote. However, don't let anybody fool you, though, because alcohol, I think I can support this with data, but alcohol, I believe, destroys more families and kills more people than all of the other drugs combined. Someone can correct me. That's fine. That's fine. But you understand, I think, the impact, what alcohol has on the family unit. Staggering. I don't avoid drunk people because I'm better than them. I avoid them because I work too hard to stop being one. I look at those things, and for me, it's self-fulfilling. I think about what hangovers feel like. I look at drunk people and what they act like in public. I remember what I was like. I remember looking and feeling like an idiot. I remember looking and feeling like a just pitiful loser. I remember. I think of some of the ridiculously, horrifically stupid things I did and choices I made as a grown adult. I'm not talking about teenagers or college kid. I'm talking when I'm 30 years old, 40 years old. Number 7, you love differently now. Sobriety brings emotional clarity. Sobriety doesn't change how you live life. It changes who you can love and how you can love. Now, I don't need to tell anybody how old I am, but I'm a lot older than I look. I know that because people tell me. I routinely get judged to be 15 or even 20 years younger than what my actual age is. Which, I've never really cared about the number. It's no big deal. I feel it now, though. Absolutely. I always say that you really start feeling your age when you turn 50. But it's the next big one up where I think you really feel it. But I do. I think when you turn 50, you start feeling everything. For sure. Sobriety doesn't just change how you live. It changes who you can love. And you outgrow people who never intended to grow. So, yeah, I do. I think about those people that I was at those playgrounds with, those playmates, and when you make the decision, you go this way and they're going that way. Did you outgrow them? Or I don't know if it's I don't know if outgrow is the right word, but I think that some of those folks in that situation, it's amazing to me, but got angry with me because I wasn't there anymore to justify their own behavior and be the buddy that was next to him doing the same stupid stuff. Number 8, some people used you as emotional cover. The drunk becomes the scapegoat. When you heal, those emotional crutches vanish. Just simply, some people only love the unhealed version of you because it made them comfortable. I don't know much about this one. When I was putting all this together, I tried to come up with a dozen things, and I came up with 10. But here's number 9, social learning theory, why groups either adapt or reject you. Human behavior is contagious. Sure. We mimic our peers unconsciously. When you stop drinking, you interrupt a behavioral pattern embedded in the group. So when I golfed years ago, it wasn't so much about the game. It wasn't. I like to walk when I golf. So yeah, I was one of those drinkers. I would go out with 8 beers in my golf bag and just get drunk walking around the golf course by myself. I mean, the reasons for addiction and the reasons for my addiction, those are other episodes. It's not where we're going today, but when you change the pattern, you challenge the entire group dynamic. And I did that too, though, because I think about some of the things that I prioritized and idolized and liked when I was in that situation, and it's all gone. It's just like magically. Granted, I made specific decisions. I challenged myself and quit. Now, a friend of mine, her name's Kathy, she once told me something, because I said, early in my sobriety, it was in year 1. It was probably in month 1. I said, I'm never going to drink again. And she started laughing at me. She said, Scotty, you never say that. She went on to explain to me why. And I get it. So today, what an addict should say is, I know that I can never do this again. And I know that. I have a friend, very close friend. They're dying for the same addictions that I have. And I think that what's keeping me alive and what's killing them is this one single thing. It's accepting and having clarity over understanding that you can never do this again and why. I can't drink. If I were to go out tomorrow and just say, done, I'm going to go have fun. I've lived this much life. I've only got these many years left. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to party, do this and that. It would come back exponentially and I'd be dead in a year. Guarantee you. So I get that and I accept it. Whereas this gentleman I'm talking about, I'm watching him die. He's a wet drunk. It's horrible. But I don't know how, if there's that's why I think that I thank God quit when I did, because I'm sure it affected my health greatly, just as for this other person I'm talking about, what it's done to their health because they've continued. It's just staggering, the devastation and the harm. And number 10, the hardest reality. And I said that some of these overlap, and they do, but the last one, it kind of brings everything together. Your growth will cost you people. As simple as some people only loved you for the unhealed you. Which means to me, those friendships were never friendships in the first place. They were relationships out of convenience, supporting bad behavior, life choices, what have you. I did not put together a scripture that I just didn't. I didn't put one down on paper. I always think, and I always go through my Bible, and I actually go through my electronic one because it helps me. It's easier for me to pull things down. I didn't even do that, so I can still go to my standby, which is 2 Timothy 4:7. I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. And that's the thing right now, though, because regarding my sobriety, I've got to stay the course and keep the faith. Because if I want to finish the race, for me, for my family, an enormous part of that is me staying sober. If you ever, if someone needs help, reach out. I will tell you though, because I get phone calls and I get messages from people sometimes saying, "Hey, my loved one, they have a problem. They have an issue. Can you help them? Will you call them?" And it happens. I get a couple of these every few months, and normally it's just like, no, I can't. Because they need to call me. They need to reach out. If you're doing that for some person, third hand, second hand, whatever, it's a waste of time. So please I would love to help. But until and when they are ready to reach out, that's when it happens, and that's when the help can come. Now, I told you going forward what's going to happen, because I'm thrilled. And just so you know, too, this episode is different than the prior 12 because I really just kind of winged it. I wanted to see how that felt. I had one sheet of paper with these pillars on it. Otherwise, I'm just talking. I'd love to hear what you all think. For anybody that has been with me for all the episodes, I just kind of wung it. Is that a word? Winged it? Wung it? I kind of wung it. But I wanted to see if I could do it without having to rely on just so much preparation and things like that. I don't think I should have to have that much preparation. I think I'll continue, though. I have to make notes, though, because I think that, like today, though, there were pillars. There were 10 pillars. I wanted to hit those because they were important to the overall message, and it helped me, and I think those were important. But next episode, it will be probably part 2 of the division and fury in society. And I'd love to hear what other people want to see as well. I would appreciate you hitting the button and subscribing, of course, but then put on notifications so that every time I put a new video out, you get notified about it. Now, what I've done, what's going on right now in my life, there's so much happening. I finished a screenplay. I actually finished my screenplay about 6 months ago. A lot of people read it. A lot of people that I admire, a lot of important people in the industry. And I've gone through since then 2 iterations in drafts, and it's awesome. It is. It's an incredible, awesome story. But I'd talked with my partner, and that right now is going to I'm going to kind of put it on the back corner of my desk because there are some other things that are happening and that I think are more beautiful and more important and bigger. Pretty stoked about him too. The biggest one, I can't just talk about it just quite this moment, but it's going to be bigger than the unbreakable boy. I guarantee you. God bless you. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon.